everyone. Today we have with us Ben Marans, the co-founder and CEO of CloudForge, a pioneering force in modernizing the $250 billion metal distribution industry. With a background in investment, entrepreneurship, and venture capital, Ben has played a pivotal role in conceiving, launching, and investing in various vertical SaaS companies. His journey includes stints as an investment associate at Fractal Software, co-founder of Decko Designs, and significant contributions to the growth of companies like HealthVerity and Medidata Solutions. Ben's expertise spans across industries, and his current focus at CloudForge reflects his commitment to empowering metal services centers and distributors for optimal operational management, increase sales, and enhance profitability. So over to you, Ben. Let's talk about industry overview. So what inspired the founding of CloudForge and the focus on metal service centers? And can you elaborate a little bit more on the current challenges faced by the MSCs due to outdated software in the market?
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds great. So my background is in vertical SaaS, right? I've worked at different vertical SaaS companies. I worked at a venture studio investing in vertical SaaS companies. And so I started analyzing the industrial supply chain, and I spoke with a lot of people in the metal industry and very quickly realized that the epicenter of the industrial supply chain is the metal service center industry. And it's rife with legacy software players that are super outdated, that cause tremendous inefficiencies, hindered growth, lost profits, and essentially just keeps the industry that has basically provided America with its industrial success in the dark ages, right? And so the country was built on steel, right? And we sort of as a country fallen behind in manufacturing and industrial prominence. And steel is everywhere, aluminum is everywhere, and it's completely ignored and underserved. And so too is the industry that powers it. And so that notion made me really excited to help these sort of independent companies that are powering the industrial economy that touch aerospace, defense, automotive manufacturing, construction, oil and gas, energy, etc. And very specifically, what I learned about the metal service center industry is that they are facing a number of issues, right? It's a commodified market, and this sector has to quote products very quickly to their end customers, and it takes them a very long time to effectively build a quote for specific products because the price of steel and aluminum fluctuates rapidly because there's many different SKUs and end markets will pay different prices. The current systems don't really allow them to leverage any data or analytics to quickly create a quote. There's no real sales management platforms. It's very clunky UI and UX. They have almost zero dashboarding solutions within the vertical players in the market and a ton of inefficiencies across the board. And I haven't even gotten into the whole AI application that can help them forecast metal and just change the way they operate. But I'm seeking to change the metal, along with CloudForge, the metal supply chain. We want to advance it fundamentally, starting with the service centers, because that's where the main challenge is, but connect that $1 trillion supply chain together through software that just literally does not exist in this space. It's a completely old school market that's really on the brink of change, and we think will help usher that in.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, moving on to the other startups in the industry. In your opinion, what potential do startups have to disrupt the metal service centers industry, and how does CloudForge differentiate itself from other solutions in the market?
Yeah, great question. So manufacturing as a general category was one of the first areas of business to adopt software in the 1980s, right? It's a very process-driven industry. And so you see a lot of green screens, MS-DOS, AS400, matrix-based. That was really the beginning of B2B software, and manufacturers were the first to kind of adopt it. And service centers are sort of a form of manufacturers, right? There's a little bit of a difference that makes it unique, but because they started adopting so early, they're sort of stuck with those old school softwares. Now, a lot of them now use graphic user interfaces. Some are still on the MS-DOS systems, but these kind of key players in the market are verticalized, right? We have companies like Enmark, Invera, PS Data that were all founded basically during the Cold War, or maybe a little bit after. And they are all built for service centers and distributors, and they lack a lot of feature sets that hurt the service centers. For example, there's absolutely no CRM or quote table, quote management, customer engagement tools, e-commerce portals to help increase sales. These are sales-driven organizations, and all they have are basically ERPs where you can put in a purchase order and maybe see your inventory in a clunky view where you have to create a PDF export to actually see it. There's no dashboarding solutions within the actual tool. It's very outdated, very slow technologies. As they hire more people who are younger, they have no idea how to use those, and they're not leveraging AI at all. There's so much data in the system. We can help predict where the price of metal is going to go. We can help analyze the transaction data and buying patterns to create better price points to meet the price takers at the highest possible price point. We can take RFQs and text and change that into actual quotes that you can send back to the customer. None of these things exist in these legacy incumbents, and we're really just getting started, and they haven't changed their platforms at all. So they're the definition of a sleepy incumbent that we're facing and going to hopefully replace, so we can help the service center industry progress and advance.
Now, can you share insights into your experience working with investors who have been involved in launching B2B vertical SaaS companies? And how do you see the investment landscape evolving for startups in the workflow automation and data insight sector?
Great question. What I've noticed in terms of venture capital investors as it relates to vertical SaaS, it's either you get it and you're excited about it, or you don't, and you're like, that's a small market, I'm not interested at all. And it's entirely bifurcated to the point where after 5 words of saying I'm a vertical SaaS company, I can tell if someone's interested or not. And then if they're not, it's not worth the conversation whatsoever. So say there's some form of split there. Within the ones that are interested in vertical SaaS, they kind of have their focuses that excite them. You see so many in the healthcare space, which makes a lot of sense. You see a lot on sort of like the retail or e-commerce and all of that stuff. And that's really exciting for a lot of people, right? What you don't see a lot of is the focus on industrials and manufacturing. You do see construction, that's fair, but you don't see the industrial as much and the manufacturing. And I think people just don't really know that space well. And so we're going to see a lot more money funnel into that and a lot of change, right? The frontline workers are going to experience a revolution. And I think a lot of that's going to be in the industrial side of things. And in terms of kind of starting a company in 2023 is way harder to raise than in 2020, 2021, and a lot of 2022. There's no question about it. I look at peers that started earlier and have very similar metrics, and they got to raise like it would have been a totally different ballgame. You know, people getting crazy valuations off of a 3-sentence pitch deck. You know, it's just different. Money was cheap and it's not now. And everything comes back down to business fundamentals and growth at the same time. So everything's way harder. And I love it because what I heard is you basically get to play the video game on hard mode. And eventually that'll change and we'll be operating the business with the right fundamentals, right? We've operated lean. We've done a lot on basically 2 people, like a lot, and some contractors. We have spent very effectively. We've seen a lot of adoption. And what we've realized is that focus, like de-scope your focus, right? And so I think there's a lot of companies that had raised a ton of money. They went crazy. They allocated in so many different directions and it all kind of fell apart and they all peeled back. We are operating in a very sober environment. We are coming out of a very serious, like, it is not easy at all to start a company now, and only kind of the best will survive. And so we have to operate a business like the way you're supposed to operate a business and not off of like this hype cycle, which really just never made any sense to begin with.
Now, moving on to technology trends. How do you envision AI-driven analysis and advanced analytics transforming the operations of metal service centers? And are there any emerging trends in technology adoption within the metal industry that you find particularly noteworthy?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll answer the latter half of the question first. If you look at manufacturing, which is a little different than the service center, you're seeing a lot of venture-backed companies kind of start to replace these old school ERPs. They're doing a lot of quoting, efficiency plays, and more modern tech stack. And that's pretty exciting for that part of the sector. In the metal service center space, which let me explain the difference a little bit. With metal service centers or with manufacturers, you take 10 products and make one, right? So you have a bill of materials and you manage those inputs to create a product. In the metal service center space, you take one product and you make 10, meaning you take an 80-foot or let's say 65-foot tube, you cut it into a bunch of pieces, then you laser jet cut it, you galvanize it, you send it out for further processing, it comes back in, and you have to track those pieces all along the way and inventory them in the system. And so we have not seen any advancement on the ERP, core system of record side. Where the metal service center industry has experienced technological advancement is on the sort of like system of engagement marketplace side of things. So if you look at a company like Rebus has raised, I think, over $100 million since they were founded in 2016 or 17, maybe 15, and maybe even 18, sorry. And they have been able to sort of create this system where people can go and try to source different metal products, and then a service center can respond, right? And so that definitely, there's a lot of interest there. And I don't think the model with that has been like nailed perfectly, but I think people are going to workshop around it and it'll get there. Where we see innovation happening is on the actual core system of record to start, and then the centralized sourcing for the industry, and concurrent with that, price forecasting for metal pricing, which is one of the biggest challenges across the supply chain. Is like, what do we think next month the price of hot rolled coil is going to be? What do we think it's going to be in 2026? How is that going to affect our sourcing, our inventory control, how we're pricing, our strategy, our cost basis, and we want to get that down to the SKUs, the alloys, the forms, the grades, the dimensions, the chemistries, the region, the end market, the buying persona, down to the psychographic data. Like there are a lot of things that we can leverage, but kind of starting at the beginning, there's a few. Let's talk about price forecasting, right? We want to utilize AI to analyze buying patterns, historical sales and purchasing data, supply demand dynamics for accurate metal pricing forecasts that we can have coming out of the core ERP, that being CloudForge. We want to help service centers and other metal players with demand planning, right? Analyzing all the data I just mentioned. We can utilize AI to predict future demand with greater accuracy. And now, kind of going back to that quoting piece, we want to help our clients automate their quoting calculations based on granular data points in their ERP, so that they can have this rapid quoting response time at the optimal price point. We want to utilize AI to take text-based RFQs, see if they have it in inventory, send a quote back, and eventually we actually want to help the industry source more centrally on a centralized platform where a metal fabricator or manufacturer can say, all right, I want some 4x4 quarter-inch A500 18-foot tube, and this is the lead time that I'm willing to wait. And we can circulate that to all of the service centers that we know may or may not, or are likely to have that, and send them that RFQ immediately. And the way we would do that is by classifying the data models of each product category into a singular form that we can then ingest into the software and be able to determine who's got that, send them the RFQ, and then use the AI system to actually respond to the quote rapidly, and then it gets back. And now we have this trove of real-time transaction data where we've created a nomenclature of metal products that are standardized with our system, and we know the real-time pricing down to very, very, very granular data points and lead times, which we could then utilize for not just an index, but we can also start to predict it. And in the current way they do it in the industry now is there's an index that basically just takes the mill pricing that is produced every so often, and it's at best a month lag. And it's not even representative of how the service center needs to price. It's how much they're going to pay from the mill. So that whole experience is broken. So as you can see, there's just a tremendous amount of AI applications that we can utilize. And we're starting by becoming that core system of record. And then throughout the stack, there's just tremendous optimization in this space. And there's not a single player that's kind of doing what CloudForge is really setting out to do. So in some ways, it's really a blue ocean market.
Now, what challenges do you see in convincing traditional MSCs to adopt modern workflow software?
It's a different culture, right? We've got MSCs that are pretty old school. They're old school. Like, it's the steel industry. It's not surprising to anybody. And there's generally a reluctance to change. There's a reason why this industry is like has the oldest software around. I've analyzed 33 industries in depth when I was at Fractal doing venture vertical SaaS investing. This one is by and large, by every metric, the most legacy, the most old school. So generally there's like a cultural shift that has to happen. And it's starting to happen. The way I've sort of segmented in the space is you have 25% of service centers that are eagerly looking for innovation, to change, to optimize, to compete, to use technology for that. You've got 50% that are like, oh, innovation, AI, that sounds cool, but like, I don't really know what that is. I'll like figure it out when I figure it out. And you've got 25% that are like, no way, I want to shake your hand, do it in that way. So there's a struggle in finding the right ones. The second challenge is when you replace a core system of record, that's a very scary thing for a business because you can put it at risk. So a lot of the time, the sales friction is going to be in the fear of changing rather than a value realization. They see the value very quickly, even at our MVP stage. So what we're really focused on, and our next hires are going to be focused on that, is implementation strategies. And from a technical perspective, there's a lot of great AI tools out there, whether it's one schema or many others that we can utilize to help transform the data from their system, extract it, migrate it, upload it, and ensure that our workflows are configured to theirs in this kind of tabular form that we can move it around like puzzles. But we have to realize that when people say ERPs are scary to change, a lot of the time it's because SAP came in, you had to pay $10 million, right? And it took forever to build it because they're basically building you software from scratch, driven by product managers who don't care. And it's just that simple. What we've done is we have a very verticalized solution. Our software is built for the workflows that are consistent in this industry. So there's not a lot of configuration that has to happen. And so we're going to make the implementation a lot quicker technologically, and the workflow is already embedded there. But a lot of it's just a kind of mindset change. And once we've proven to the industry that we've fundamentally transformed what it means to onboard with an ERP to be something actually kind of simple, which it should be and can be, then I think there's going to be very little stopping us from just absolutely winning in this space.
Now, can you elaborate on the specific features that CloudForge offers to address the pressing needs of improved middle service center software? And how does CloudForge's intelligent workflow automation system enhance the overall efficiency and competitiveness of MSCs?
Yeah, great question. So first and foremost, we're building feature parity across the board to an ERP to start. Fundamentally, we need to be able to handle all their procurement needs, their sales needs, production, shipping, accounting, billing, AR, AP. It is a fundamentally like massively robust software platform. And so we're building that feature parity, much better UX and UI that'll shave off time, which is great. Fine, cool. Where we are focusing on making the system even better in the near term is really honing in on two key pieces. One is the CRM and the quoting. The second is reporting and dashboarding and analytics. So in the current systems, there's no CRM function, right? There is no real way to manage and track/monitor, automate follow-ups of your quotes. So they create a quote, turn it into a PDF, they send it out. For you as a salesperson to see all your open quotes, you should be able to log in, see your table, filter it, find the quotes, hit a few buttons, follow up on it, right? You're going to make more money that way. Right now, they've got to generate this report through this Excel-looking filtering system, and then it spits out a PDF. So we're sort of like really giving them the tools to optimize their quote management and their quote follow-up, keep track of all of their customers very, very clearly. And then we're really low-hanging fruit is the dashboarding system. You know, with the modern UI capabilities, we've taken what requires all these complex reports that are PDF outputs and CSV exports and turning them into dashboards, right? Like your quote win ratio for certain products down to the actual customer itself, being able to see your inventory by pounds in certain locations in a dashboard form, being able to see your open purchase orders and what's delayed, your aging reports for invoices in a dashboard. So many of these have built on Microsoft BI tools to do that and built dashboards. But when you're a 1 to 2 location service center doing $8 to $20 million in revenue, and you've got 10 people, like you don't have an analyst just managing a Power BI. It's just not how it works. So it's really easy for us through the quoting, through the dashboarding, and through just better UI to kind of win right now and get clients. That's just very much in the near term. Very like within the next 12 months, we're really increasing our AI capabilities to do that. You know, AI agent via NLP, take the RFQ, text-based RFQs, turn it into quotes, be able to take from your sales transaction data, give you the best pricing suggestions, as well as that embedded e-commerce customer portal for our customers to put on their website that connects to the ERP. So, and that's just in 1 year. Then we get to the predictive analytics on demand planning and the central sourcing. I mean, it becomes wildly attractive to go with CloudForge versus a software that is in the market today that takes 4 days to send you an open sales order report.
Now, could you provide examples of how CloudForge's software connects different facets of the operation, particularly in sales, procurement, and other fulfillment? And also, how does the integration of real-time inventory visibility contribute to the success of MSCs?
Awesome. So pretend you are a salesperson at a metal service center and you get a request for 10 pieces of 20-foot 4x4 quarter-inch tube. Okay. Your first thing you're going to do is look to see if you have that in inventory. You might have 6 of those in inventory, but you need 4 more. So what are you going to do? You're going to start building your quote, and you're going to then send that over to a customer. Then you're going to have to go to your purchasing module and try to get those 4 that you don't have. And you have to recreate that whole RFQ that you send to your vendor to buy those pieces, those tubes, to then fix it, right? To then get it. So you need to see your inventory in real time. What we're doing that makes that process a lot faster is when you get that RFQ for 10, you can quickly search, you make the quote, and it automatically creates that RFQ for you and populates the vendors that have sold or you've labeled as do sell those materials. You could click a button and it sends out an RFQ that's personalized to all of them. So now what has previously been, as you create a quote, you then minimize it, and then you have to go and then send over an RFQ, and then you wait for the RFQ, to come back, and then you go back and quote. We're doing this embedded purchasing capability within the quoting flow because there's a unique aspect of this called a buyout. So often service centers are actually buying material from another vendor to fulfill an order because they don't have it in inventory. So you really want to connect these two departments and operations together with minimal clicks and keep it all interconnected. So hopefully that's a good example that's not too in the weeds.
Now, what benefits do service centers gain from utilizing predictive analytics in cost optimization and risk management?
Yeah, so one, on the pricing, this whole industry is all about increasing your net, right? They do a lot of revenue, it's low on net. And the way you get good net is obviously you want to increase gross margin, or that's one of the ways. So via CloudForge, we can help you price better based on quickly analyzing your costs of that good, your average rolling price, what the replacement cost in the industry might be if you were to buy it again, and tell your salespeople quickly, this is a good price for it, versus them having to call their boss or look online or figure it out, right? So now we've given you the best possible margin because we have a good understanding of what they would buy it for, right? And we're giving you the ability to quote that really fast. So up to 70% of quotes requests don't even get answered at a service center. Quotes are just rolling in all day long. So we've given you the ability to give a better price to increase your gross margin and to respond faster, which means speedier response. Quote response times will get you more deals. And so that's one way on the quoting side of things. And then on the predictive analytics, we can start to help you make better purchasing decisions to lower your cost of inventory to match demand, right? A lot of service centers will buy steel coil and they'll buy it at the height of the market, and then it'll just sit there and they'll have to wait for the market to go back up. And then in the meantime, they're selling that coil at a loss. So by capturing this data and giving them better predictive analytics capabilities, then they're going to lower their cost of inventory and optimize that. And when you're talking about having hundreds of millions of dollars of inventory on your floor, you're talking about basically the difference between having a good year or a bad year if you can forecast these pieces. And then, of course, efficiency. These are process-oriented businesses. We increase their efficiency, they win more. We have modern UI, they can hire younger, which is a total, almost existential crisis, to be a little dramatic, in the industry. And so, yeah, there's a lot of wins that are low-hanging fruit for the service centers as it relates to CloudForge.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, any final piece of advice for entrepreneurs entering the space or who are already in the space or struggling to make it big?
I'd keep it. I'm going to keep it general rather than focus on ones that are trying to enter the space. Look, take it with a grain of salt, but I'm a big believer, in the sort of like cliched stoicism, right? The obstacle is the way. I expect every day for things to go poorly, for things to be challenging, for bad news to come in, for products to not be the way I wanted it to be, for deals to get lost. And what that has kind of enabled me to do is just sort of like push through no matter what, because my expectations are low almost. And I think that really has helped me never get disappointed or never lose my inspiration, because I'm expecting this to be an utmost challenge, right? If you're about to do a 4-minute plank, I don't know, so that's a lot of minutes, but if you're going to do that, it's going to be hard, right? You're not expecting it to be easy. So that's kind of my approach to every day. I would just say, know that it's going to be tough every day. And if things go well, it's kind of like, oh, that was strange to some extent. It's a battle all the time. So I'm a big fan of the stoicism component and just kind of knowing that it's going to be tough no matter what and keeping that. And then there's like really one last piece that I like, which is there's a quote: success is if you can meet triumph and disaster and treat both imposters just the same. When things are great and you win, it's going to be temporary. When things are bad and you're losing, it's going to be temporary. Like, always just stay level-headed and sober about the process until you sell the business for a ton of money.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I love the fact that you're very candid in your answers, and I think that is very much needed. And I thoroughly enjoyed this interview. I hope you did too.
Yeah, thank you so much, Swamini. It's super, super nice to chat with you and just kind of share. I know I have a lot to say, so hopefully the answers were at least resonated and relevant. But giving me the opportunity to share this is great. And whoever watches it, you're interested in CloudForge in any way, happy to talk.
Thank you so much, Ben.